is.
Nice.
All right, all right. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I am back in the ball closet / my office. Welcome to another episode of Beyond the Game. I'm really excited because we're going to talk about a game that has one of the most fantastic names ever. I love it. So before we go any further, let me introduce my guest. Ian, you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and who you teach and all that wonderful background?
Sure thing. My name's IanSwindel. I've been teaching for about 6 years now, 4 of them at elementary school, K through 5. I'm from New Jersey, represent northern New Jersey. I've been teaching at Montville, Hilldale Elementary School for the past 4 years now.
Beautiful, beautiful. So I met Ian at one of the PE jams. Really cool. 20 teachers, 15 lessons, 15 minutes a lesson. Walked out with some really cool stuff that I use even today. One of the ones I learned real quick, I had my kids at the end of class line up in a line, and they close their eyes. I set a timer for 60 seconds, and they have to count 60 in their head and then sit down and open their eyes when they think that 1 minute has passed. So a little mindfulness activity I learned from that day. Really, really cool. So with no further ado, Ian, can you please
coming into the restroom?
A little bit of what is going on in the video once I share my desktop. All right. And here we go.
All right. Well, this is Schleider Ball, named after our fantastic host here. It is a strategy-based game with the objective of scoring a point in the offense by getting some kind of object into the basket. Right now, this is our 5th grade class playing. It's in a gym. It's a little tight space, our gym. But what we were able to do was kind of shorten some of the constraints in terms of the hula hoops. Hula hoops are your safe zones. The back of the gym was a safe zone, and there's a coned-off area where the objects were shot from. And I hope I'm not butchering your masterpiece here.
No, not at all. And that's what's kind of cool about this idea is, let me see if I can move this out. Hopefully it's not in the way. When I did it, I had a little basket. I did a circle, and we weren't shooting in the basket. But, again, modifying. Everything we see, we have to modify for ourselves. If you don't have the equipment, if you don't have whatever, you're going to have to figure out what works for your students. So, again, I don't know how to mute this, so unfortunately I don't want to talk over it. But if you watch real quick, you'll see every hula hoop's a safe zone, offense and defense, right? Offense is going down, throwing the ball in the hoop. How long were the periods?
We did about a minute and a half. I had some other stuff going on. This was kind of our closing activity. We had about 15, 20 minutes to finish up with it. So we went a minute and a half. I know you did, I think, 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes. So it's up to you.
It's immaterial. Whatever time works on there. Absolutely. So let's watch one more time. So you can see him running in there. And then obviously you get from one side to the other. If you make it in the hoop, then the round ends, or if a minute and a half or 2 minutes or whatever it is ends. So really cool. I love the fact that you took what you learned, were able to plug it in. Let's go a little deeper then. What grade level outcome was this aligned to?
This is aligned to some of the strategy-based standards, as well as sportsmanship and safety. Strategy being, again, being able to give feedback on some offensive and defensive strategies based on some different rules.
All right, are you using New Jersey standards? Or
I'm using New Jersey standards, yeah.
Love it. All right, so where did this – you said at the end this was a culminating activity. Where do you do units, or was this just a single lesson?
You know what? This was just this is the week after spring break. I kind of reserved for some new activities that I pick up from the NJA for conference and now from the PE jam. So I kind of my testing ground for the year. See how the kids see if I can teach it effectively to the students and see if they can handle it and based on what grade level they're in. And so it's kind of I call it experiment week. So for those new games that I find and happen to find some really great games, including this one.
Nice. Is there anything else we need to know about the activity?
I think we talked about defense, but there's a tagging aspect involved with the activity as well. So that's kind of combining a lot of different things in terms of in addition to the skills involved with throwing and catching. So the defense's job is to tag to try to send the offensive players into the zone underneath the basket to get them, out of the shooting territory.
Yeah, and in the video, I don't think it showed, but you start out with like 4 or 5 projectiles, and then once they get to the hoops for safe zones, you could throw the projectiles to your teammates. So there is the throwing and catching as well as shooting in the basket aspect, which is cool. Where's the equity in this activity? So if you have a child with special needs, or you have your lesser skilled, or you have your, phys ed superstars, how is equity built into this activity?
There's a lot of different objects that we use. You probably can't see it in the video, but we had, ranging in difficulty from, regular basketball to a soft fuzzy ball, something that's a little bit easier to throw for somebody less inclined in that regard. We had a rubber penguin. We had a Frisbee. We had a bunch of other stuff. Again, just providing a bunch of different skills. For different grades, I've done this with 3rd through 5th grade. So I've adjusted the distance of the cone zone, the shooting distance for the offensive team, also just based on where they're at and what they can handle.
Yeah, so for the activity, you have a circle of cones that the offense is never allowed to enter. So you have to shoot from outside the cones and get it into the basket. So if you made that zone smaller, it's going to be a little easier to get it in the basket. Wider, it's going to be a little harder. I really like the change of balls. I like the chicken or the whatever you were saying, the other projectile that's not usually thrown around in a basket, which is cool. Let's talk about extending the activity. So what other ideas can we come up with to make this activity either different or better?
I added some fitness to actually, we ran into the situation because it is a tight space. I'm looking forward to playing this outside when the weather gets a little bit nicer. But the defense, especially in 5th grade, was kind of smothering the offense when the game started back in their zone. So they weren't able to get many shots off early on. So what I added was some fitness to it. Defense had to perform 3 squats, 3 jumping, just something, that would give the offense enough time to at least make it halfway towards the basket without getting tagged up. So that happened the first couple rounds. So there was a modification that I kind of carried over in the indoor version.
Yeah, you have to do that on the fly once you notice things aren't working the way we want them. How can we switch it up? On the field, obviously it's going to be a lot wider space, so the defense is going to have to travel farther to get to the offense to tag them. So I think that's going to naturally work itself out there. I like that. And then also, we didn't talk about the rules to the game, but if you get tagged in this game, you're a rebounder. So you enter that coned off circle, and then if they miss the shot, you get it and then pass it back to your teammates. So I think that's kind of cool for some of the kids who are maybe less, their skill level or strategies suffers a little bit. If they get tagged, now they're not out. Obviously, we don't have elimination. Now they go in, they're still part of the activity, and you actually need somebody in that circle, because if you don't get tagged, then all the projectiles end up in there, and then you can't do anything. So
it's funny you say that, because we actually ran into that situation with 4th grade classes. They had everybody out, and they shot all the projectiles into the zone. Nobody can go in, and a couple kids figured out that they had to get tagged. Defense, the next round, tried not to tag anybody when that happened, but it was a funny kind of back and forth that came up.
Nice. Yeah, I would definitely say add a couple pennies in there to make it easier to identify who's offense and defense. That's pretty simple. So we did the recall and reproduction. That's pretty easy. We worked on the skills. So what strategy did you have them work on, or what reasoning? How did we go?
Yeah, when it was mostly the defensive perspective. That's where a lot of the questions came up. I did a couple check for understandings between each round real quick, just to see if they were seeing what I was seeing and to open their eyes to it a little bit. The defense, from the defense perspective, what was happening was a lot of times they were just so over anxious after they did their exercise to sprint out towards the back of the gym, unknowingly leaving the shooting area wide open, and a lot of the better shooters just uncontested. So again, we talked about that and the why of that, most importantly, why it's important, not to just kind of run around, but the objective of the game and how to tie that in to what they're supposed to do.
And then my last levels are for extended thinking. How can we have the students change the rules? So for me, I always say, okay, we did my stuff. Now, what would you think the rule changes could be? I think that always works. And then what are the skills we worked on in class that you can use outside of class? And then give me an example. So I think that really hits the DOK 4 and 3 a little more on there. So the final question I have for you is, how did you assess the lesson? What specific area were you looking for?
Like I said, those checks for understanding, and again, it was a shorter activity. We'd like to play this a little bit more time the next time we do it. But those checks for understanding, just so they understand the basics of the game, and those little strategy nuances that we discussed that make the game that much better when they're competing and communicating to each other. We also did just a general. I busted out my clickers this week. I'm just kind of getting those going. So they did a quick, yes or no. You like the activity, and they got a resounding yes. They loved it. So.
Yeah, I like those formative clicker checks a lot. I think they help. And you could ask anything, how well did we work with our teammates? A is fantastic. B is, pretty well. C is okay. And D is, I got in an argument or something like that. So we could always use that for the formatives, which is really cool. And the cool thing about this activity is you could assess throwing, you could assess catching, you could assess defensive strategy, offensive strategy. You could talk about pump fakes. I mean, there's just so many different things. You just have to choose the one thing you want to assess. I know in the last episode I brought this up again, but one of my administrators had said during a lesson you really can only actively assess one thing. So you just have to figure that out and choose it. So I love the clickers there. The last 30 seconds is all you. How can we get in touch with you in the future? And is there anything else you want to say to the viewers out there?
Fantastic. Yeah, you can reach me by Twitter. I've just really kind of dove into this Twitter universe on both the coaching and teaching end. And the teaching end's been fantastic. So you can reach me on Twitter at IFS47. My email is my first name, Ian, IAN, Schwindel, SCHWINDEL @montville.net. And I'm also on Voxer. I've stumbled upon that. I know you're involved with that. It's just a fantastic way for teachers to bounce ideas off each other. And I encourage everybody out there to kind of jump in, dive in, don't be shy. Just a lot of great people looking to share, some great stuff. So it's a fantastic resource, and I look forward to meeting a lot more people through here.
Yeah, absolutely. Why invent the wheel when you could just go and find people who have already done cool stuff, take it, modify it like you did with this, and make it work for your students. So I really appreciate your time, sir. Thank you for taking time during your day to share with us. And I look forward to seeing the episode.
Thank you, Justin. Appreciate it, man. Thanks for the game.